Some acts of kindness are so small, yet they change everything. He didn't have much, but he gave away the only meal he had. He thought no one saw him, but someone did. And that one moment, on a lonely afternoon, changed his entire life. This is the story of a boy and a hungry stray dog. 12-year-old Arav lived in a quiet, dusty neighborhood on the edge of the city. His clothes were old, his shoes worn at the edges, and his backpack had a broken zipper he always tried to hide. His father worked as a cleaner at a factory miles away, leaving before sunrise and returning only when the stars were high. His mother stayed at home, sewing clothes for neighbors to earn a few extra coins. They were a loving family, but life was not easy. Every morning, Arav walked to school on an empty stomach. His parents could only afford to pack him one simple lunch, usually a small piece of flatbread and a bit of lentils wrapped in foil. He never complained. He knew his mother stayed awake at night just to stitch clothes so he wouldn't go to school hungry. He carried his little lunchbox carefully every day, grateful for whatever they could give. At school, most children bought snacks from the canteen or exchanged fancy lunchboxes. Arav sat quietly in the corner of the courtyard, opening his little box slowly, pretending not to notice others staring. He was used to staying invisible. Teachers liked him because he was polite and hard-working, but he barely spoke unless spoken to. His classmates didn't dislike him, but they didn't really see him either. One afternoon, as the final bell rang, Arav walked toward the old park he crossed on his way home. The trees there were tall and cast long shadows over the worn-out benches. He always sat at the same spot to eat his lunch, saving it for after school so he wouldn't feel hungry all day. As he settled on the bench, he opened his lunchbox carefully. The aroma of the simple food comforted him. Just as he picked up the bread, he heard a soft whine. He looked down and saw a small, skinny dog with matted fur and tired eyes staring at his meal. Its ribs were faintly visible, and its tail wagged slowly, not with excitement but hope. Arav glanced around. No one was nearby. The dog didn't bark or move closer. It just stared, with the kind of hunger he understood deeply. For a moment, he hesitated. This was his only food for the day. His stomach was already aching. But then, gently, he broke the bread into 2 pieces and placed one piece in front of the dog. At first, the dog didn't believe it. It sniffed the bread cautiously before eating it with soft, desperate bites. When it finished, it looked at Arav again, not begging, but thankful. Arav smiled and gave away the rest of his food. As the dog finished eating, it sat beside him quietly. There were no words, no sounds, just a peaceful silence. For the first time that day, Arav didn't feel alone. The next morning, Arav left for school with nothing in his lunchbox. His mother had apologized softly and kissed his forehead. "I'll make something tomorrow," she said with tired eyes. He didn't tell her he had given away his food the day before. She was already carrying enough weight on her shoulders. At school, his hunger gnawed at him. During lunchtime, he sat on the same bench in the courtyard, pretending to read a book while others laughed and shared snacks. A few children whispered about how thin he looked. One boy passing by said loudly, "Maybe he doesn't eat because he thinks he's better than us." Another girl giggled. Arav lowered his head and stayed silent. After school, he returned to the same park, hoping to see the dog again, even though he had nothing to give. As he approached the bench, he saw a man standing there, Mr. Bakshi, the owner of a small grocery store near the main road. He was feeding the dog biscuits and gently patting its head. Arav froze behind a tree, not wanting to be seen. He watched as the dog wagged its tail, looking happier than before. Then Mr. Bakshi's eyes shifted and landed on Arav. "Hey, boy," he called out kindly. "This little one has been waiting here since morning." Arav stepped forward nervously. The dog ran to him, tail wagging more now. Mr. Bakshi looked at the boy's empty hands, his pale face, and the worn-out bag he carried. "Do you know this dog?" he asked. Arav hesitated, then nodded slowly. I just gave him some food yesterday," he said softly. Mr. Bakshi raised his eyebrows. "Your lunch?" Arav didn't answer, but his silence was enough. "That was kind of you," the man said gently, but his tone carried concern. "But what about you? Did you eat anything today?" Arav shook his head slightly. Embarrassment tightened his throat. "I'm fine," he murmured and turned to leave. He didn't want pity. He didn't want anyone to think he was weak. As he walked away, a group of boys from his school passed by. One of them pointed at him and said loudly, "There goes the boy who eats with stray dogs." Laughter followed. Arav kept walking, staring at the ground, hoping they would stop. That evening, he went home exhausted. His mother asked if he had eaten at school. He lied and said yes. His father came home later, shoulders heavy, hands rough from work. The house was silent except for the sound of sewing needles and distant traffic. Arav lay in bed that night thinking about the dog. He wondered if it would be there again tomorrow. He wondered if kindness always came with loneliness, and if anyone ever noticed the people who quietly gave without expecting anything back. The next day, Arav walked the same route after school, his steps slower than usual. He didn't have food again, but something inside him still pulled him toward the park. As he neared the bench, he stopped in surprise. There was a cardboard box on the bench, neatly placed, with his name written on it in black marker. For Arav. He looked around, confused. The dog was sitting beside the bench as if guarding the box. Arav approached slowly, his heart racing. He lifted the lid. Inside were several neatly packed lunch containers, fresh chapati, rice, lentils, and even a small sweet. There was also a water bottle and a note folded on top. His fingers trembled as he opened the paper. The note read, "Kindness never goes unseen. You fed someone when you were hungry yourself. This food is for you, not charity, but gratitude." A friend. Arav's eyes stung with emotion. He sat down, taking a piece of chapati and breaking a small part to give to the dog first. The dog ate happily, then rested its head on his lap. Just then, Mr. Bakshi stepped out from behind a tree, smiling gently. "I saw what you did that day," he said softly. "I followed the dog and saw you sharing your only meal. Most people walk past suffering, but you gave from your heart." Arav looked up, speechless. Mr. Bakshi handed him another bag. "I spoke to your school today," he continued. "From now on, you'll get free lunch from the canteen. And after school, you can stop by my shop. I could use help stacking shelves for a few hours. I'll pay you fairly. You can take food home, too." Arav's eyes widened. "But I don't know if I can—" "You already earned it," Mr. Bakshi interrupted gently, "by being human when no one else was looking." Word slowly spread in the neighborhood, not about a poor boy, but about a kind one. Teachers began to take notice. Some parents donated clothes and school supplies anonymously. Even the classmates who once laughed now watched him with silent respect, unsure how to approach him but no longer mocking. The dog, whom Arav began calling Mintu, followed him everywhere after that. It slept near his house, met him after school, and waited in the park every afternoon. Arav's parents were shocked when bags of groceries began arriving at their door some evenings with no names attached. But they silently thanked whoever was helping. For the first time in a long time, Arav didn't feel invisible. The world, which once felt cold and distant, now seemed a little softer, all because he chose kindness over hunger, even when no one was watching. Sometimes the smallest act of love changes the biggest part of our life. Kindness, given in silence, returns louder than words. Arav fed a hungry soul and found hope for his own. Someone saw his goodness and chose to lift him up, because in the end, what we give is never truly lost.